What is going on, everybody? This is episode 38 of IHS in Hindsight. Welcome back to the channel, folks. How we doing? It is officially Tuesday. It is September 14th, I believe, right? Or maybe it's the 13th. I can't even remember what the day it is. But regardless, it's Tuesday. Hopefully you're having a good start to your week. Monday is officially over. Speaking of Monday, last night was a pretty crazy Monday Night Football game to kick off this season. Absolutely insane. We'll get into it later on. But nonetheless, as I have been saying, this show on Tuesdays is, we're just kind of talking about everything coming out of the weekend, talking about everything from, what happened through NFL, diving a little bit of college football. That's really what the basis of really this show is for Tuesdays. So, but we'll kind of dive into the week of the NFL. We'll kind of dive into, really things that happened, things that really stood out, things that's kind of been being chit-chatted about, maybe some things that aren't, that maybe stick out to me and maybe not really many others. I really don't know. I had to wake up a little bit earlier this morning, had a doctor's appointment, had to get some blood work done, so there you go. That's out of the way with. I wanted to get back home and start recording here. But nonetheless, let's dive right into it, guys, and hopefully you guys can enjoy this episode, and hopefully it kind of makes your Tuesday a little bit better if it hasn't been going too well, so hopefully it can do that. But if you guys missed my Steelers and Buffalo Bills recap of the game, kind of, going through everything, that was uploaded kind of later last night. I'm trying to, really get to the nitty-gritty of how to make my exports faster and things like that, because sometimes they get delayed, sometimes they go slower than, other times. I don't know. I'm trying to make it happen, and that's why sometimes my shows are delayed a little bit as well. So I'm trying to work on that, but that was uploaded last night. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into hearing me talk about that, break that down, that was up last night. What did we record Saturday? Yeah, and Saturday was just kind of going into, the Steelers preview recap. Friday was, everything coming out of last week. So those are up on the channel if you missed it. If you want to check those out, that's up there, folks. But let's get into this, guys. Let's get in this. So it was officially week 1 of the NFL season. Obviously, I was watching the Steelers and Bills game at 1 o'clock, and then after that, I was kind of on red zone a little bit, but I was watching a lot of the Browns and Chiefs game. So let's pull it up here. So we're looking at, let me see here. Okay, why isn't the full thing on here? Okay. Hold on 1 second, guys. The whole schedule's not up here. Loading. Okay. So, I'm not going to break down every game. I'm going to go through the scores of each game, and as I kind of do that, things that I kind of want to talk about really coming out of those, and obviously some news coming out of the NFL as well. I want to talk about also. Hold on 1 second, guys. Okay. All right, so we talked about the Thursday night game Friday. So we had Jacksonville and Houston. Now, I did see somewhere, I don't know how true this is, I guess kind of take it with a grain of salt. I did see somewhere that Urban Meyer was already, his heart already wasn't in, after this game, that his heart wasn't really even in it in regards of coaching this Jacksonville team. USC, by the way, fired their coach. And I don't know if that's something that Urban Meyer's interested in. But I said this quite a while back when he got hired. I do not see him being successful in the NFL. I did not see him lasting that long through his contract with Jacksonville. But I didn't expect him to already get ready to leave after the first game. Now, how true that is, I don't know. But it's something to keep an eye on. If that does happen. But Jacksonville lost 37-21. Trevor Lawrence had 3 touchdowns. He threw 3 picks. Tyrod Taylor had a couple touchdowns. David Johnson. So the Texans start off 1-0, man. The Texans, we know that they were expected to be the worst team in the league this year. And they still possibly could. But it seems like there's just a lot of things off with Urban Meyer as players. Chemistry. Players just aren't really they're just not really connecting. And that's definitely a major issue there, and it's definitely something to look forward or to look out to keep an eye on. Chargers, Washington. Chargers beat the Washington football team 20-16. Ryan Fitzpatrick had a hip injury, had a hip issue early on this game. Taylor Heineke had to come in, play that out. Rashawn Slater, Chase Young wasn't much of a factor in this game. Austin Eckler had a TD. Justin Herbert, he had a TD as well. Had a couple good passes down the stretch trying to ice this game, get this game put away, and they did that. So the Chargers defeating Washington. They're starting 1-0. Seattle taking on the Colts. I thought this might have been a little bit of an interesting game, a little bit. Seattle's kind of like, Seattle, that's the thing, like, there's times, like, there's been some seasons, more recent, where I wasn't quite sure if Seattle was going to be a playoff team or not, but they always find a way to get in. They always find a way to win 10 or 10-plus games. And when I was making my predictions, I had Seattle around 9, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win 10 or 11. They know how to win games. They know how to, work with things and get the best out of things, even though they might not really be all that promising, like maybe a defense or they make things work. That, you know what I mean? They win enough and things like that. So Seattle won 28-16. Russell Wilson had a huge deep bomb to Lockett. I believe Lockett had a couple touchdowns. But this is Russell Wilson, man. A typical start for Russell Wilson, always starting hot in the year. So I think really the question is, will we see a different Russell Wilson at the end of the year rather than a Russell Wilson who dries off and, doesn't really get many points on the boards, kind of dwindles down? I'm sure we'll be talking about Russell Wilson as an MVP candidate through half the season once again, but he has to really change that MO about him. But 28-16, Seattle defeats the Indianapolis Colts. We'll see what happens with the Colts going forward, man. A lot of people are high on them. There's some people that, aren't really quite sure. I guess we have to wait and see. Jets and Panthers, Sam Darnold's facing his old team, and we all know, I'm sure Sam Darnold in the back of his mind, he was definitely motivated about this and wanted to beat him, and he did. I believe he had over 250 some passing yards, had a touchdown. Definitely what he wanted, obviously. And Carolina starts 1-0. Colin Cowherd just licking his chops at Sam Darnold. He absolutely loves him. He worships him. I'm sure he prays to him at night as well. So I don't really know what his fascination is about Sam Darnold, because every time I ever come across Colin Cowherd, he's talking about Sam Darnold, he thinks he's a top 10 quarterback. So, but Sam Darnold, this is definitely a better situation for him. We all know this. We'll kind of see as the season goes on how Matt Rule, how, really kind of things click and things like that. It's definitely a better situation. So you'd expect for him to have that success, right? Bengals and Vikings. This went to overtime. I actually tuned into the little last piece of this game after the Steelers and Bills game. This went toward the final minutes of overtime. There was a big fumble by Dalvin Cook down the stretch in overtime that might not even have been a fumble. But anyway, they called it a fumble. And Cincinnati ended up getting a game-winning field goal. Evan McPherson, the new kicker, got it in. But Cincinnati really throughout this game, was really kind of having the lead over Minnesota. Minnesota had a late comeback, and Cincinnati put the game away in overtime. Jamar Chase had a good showing his first week, over 100 yards. I believe he had a touchdown, 5 catches. Joe Burrow looked very sharp. Didn't look like he missed a beat at all this game, so good on him. I do like Joe Burrow. I was a big fan of him coming out of LSU, so that is good on that part. But yeah, that went to overtime, and I wasn't sure if it was going to end in a tie. There was a point in time where it seemed like Minnesota might have won. Bengals might have won. It was kind of all over the place. But Minnesota, I'm kind of concerned about, because I don't buy into Kirk Cousins. I'm not a fan of him. I know he had a pretty good year last year, but I just don't buy into him elevating that team much more than really what he has the last 3 years he's been on this team. I just don't buy it. I just don't. And I'm not saying Minnesota won't be a playoff team or can't be. I think I had them around 9 wins. I think they could win 10 and try to get in the playoffs too. Heck, they could still win their division for all I know. I don't know, but I'm just saying in general, it's not that they're a bad team, but I'm not a Kirk Cousins fan. That's just me. Definitely one of the more surprising games of the week. The Cardinals absolutely demolished the Titans 38-13. I thought Tennessee was going to win this game. I really did. I thought Tennessee was going to win this. And I guess not. Tennessee just couldn't get anything going from a passing standpoint. Derrick Henry couldn't get going. Their defense was absolutely just sleepwalking this whole entire game. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, that connection just hit right off the bat. Christian Kirk had a pretty solid game with a touchdown as well. Kyler Murray looked great. Cardinals looked great. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks in one game. What does that tell you? So it's definitely the start the Cardinals want and things like that. They definitely looked really good this game. We know that they're going to have a pretty dynamic offense. I really think the secondary is really the concern of the team and things like that. But it's definitely what you want to see. Pass rush there. That obviously helps the secondary. Kyler Murray, that offense just clicking on all cylinders. So Cardinals defeat Titans 38-13. San Francisco defeats the Niners 41-30, or San Francisco and the Niners. The Lions 41-13. They were up like 41-17 left with not a whole lot of time left in the game, and the Lions just absolutely went on a tear. So kudos to the Lions for not giving up and staying in there. And I think that we all know the Lions are not going to be good again this year, but I think that they're a team that can try to hang in more games than not. And even though they're going to lose those games, I think that they're a team that will definitely hang around in some games and, might lose that out in the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter maybe, but at least throughout most of it, I could see the Lions being a team like that. Another surprising win, not really to me, but to a lot of people in the sports media. The Steelers defeated the Bills 23-16. There's not much for me to talk about here because I talked about everything yesterday. But really, Josh Allen, the Bills' offensive line had no answer for the Steelers. For the Steelers' defense, they were just really attacking that offensive line. Tons of pressure on Allen. The Steelers' secondary just made a lot of really good plays, especially kind of toward the end of the game in crunch time with Buffalo trying to come back. Special teams played a big part in this for the Steelers as well, and pretty much they turned around their offense in the second half. So 1-0 for Steelers is definitely a big statement win. Philadelphia defeats the Falcons 32-6. I was very surprised about this. Jalen Hurts, very impressive first start here. Him and Dallas Goedert, very good connection. I knew this going in. Devonta Smith got his first career NFL TD of the season. Philadelphia, definitely a good start for them. That's what you want. Nick Sirianni gets his first win as a head coach. Browns and Chiefs. This was definitely, aside from the Monday Night Football game, the best game all week. Chiefs win 33-29. Cleveland was ahead of this game really throughout the whole first half. There was a point in time I think they were up like 22 to 10 or something like that at halftime. Nick Chubb early on was getting just yards upon yards on Kansas City. Baker was moving the ball down the field. Chiefs just didn't really have an answer there in the second half, but Browns defense, it just kind of seemed like they just couldn't, and that's what it is. That's what it is. Kansas City, man, arguably the best team in the NFL, best offense in the NFL. We know this. And Patrick Mahomes did enough to, get the ball in the end zone. Kelsey, Hill, and was able to take care of the Browns defense. I believe John Johnson might have got injured early on. I'm not really sure how much of a factor Myles Garrett was. Again, I didn't watch this whole game. I was kind of going back and forth. But Cleveland did have their way, man. And honestly, yes, Cleveland lost, but you still got to give credit to them because they did hang in there against, the best offense in the NFL, a top 2 team in the league. Baker Mayfield, made some good plays, but this is what separates Baker Mayfield from some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL. Baker Mayfield, since 2018, I believe, he's the number one. He leads all quarterbacks in the fourth quarter with INTs with 16. That's what separates him, man. He makes poor plays toward end of games in the fourth quarter, makes bad decisions, tries to force things sometimes, it seems like, and Cleveland had the ball, trying to go down the field to try to win this game, and Mayfield threw an interception. So they did have a really good lead on Kansas City and played them well, it seemed like, but it just wasn't enough. Kansas City was too high-powered. Saints, another surprising game of this year, or not this year, this week. Saints defeat Green Bay 38-3. I'll talk about this a little bit later on. Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns, looked very impressive. I don't care how bad Green Bay was. You can't take that away. Jameis Winston, 5 TDs. Aaron Rodgers just looked absolutely terrible. He was terrible. I think this was the worst game I've ever seen him play. It just didn't even seem like he cared. It didn't even seem like he cared. So I'm sure he'll bounce back and things like that, but just an absolute disaster for Green Bay. Broncos defeat the Giants 27-13. Miami defeats the Patriots 17-16. Mac Jones, his first start, him against Tua. Dolphins just was able to contain Mac Jones and just didn't let him get down the field toward the end of the game. Rams and Bears. Rams win 34-14. What else did you expect there? Justin Fields did have a rushing touchdown. He was in the game just a very, very tiny amount. Didn't throw a pass, was really in there just to kind of maybe do some RPOs, handoffs. Did have a rushing touchdown. Bear fans want to see him as soon as possible. Monday Night Football. I'll talk about this too because I'm just going over the scores right now and I'm just going to kind of get in depth on a couple things. Monday Night Football. Probably definitely the best game of the week, I would say. 37-27. The Raiders defeat the Ravens. This game was absolutely insane, man. This game, Baltimore had a lead early on, 14-0. Raiders hung in there, made some, Carr made some big throws. Darren Waller, definitely a menace on that field, man, just crazy. It was 17-10 going into the third quarter. Baltimore would score, Raiders would score, things like that. So anyway, Baltimore had the ball. They got the ball up pretty much at the end of the game. It ended up being 4th and 2 in Raider territory. I want to say maybe around like their 30-yard line, maybe a little less than that. But anyway, Lamar tried to run. He was short, 4th and 2. Baltimore kicks a field goal. There's like 40-some seconds left. Okay. And the Raiders, they get the ball left. They work the ball back. They work their way down the field. They make enough plays to get in field goal position. Daniel Carlson, I believe that's his name, their kicker. He kicks a 55-yard field goal to tie it, send it to overtime. Overtime was nuts, too, because the Raiders, it seemed like their first possession, it was crazy. They were working their way up the field, making some big plays, torching the Ravens secondary. Carr throws a bomb on the sideline to Bryan Edwards. Seems like it was a touchdown. He scored, but then his knee was short, and it was called back. Now, the Raiders, they tried to run it in with Carr. It didn't work. Carr threw as well. It didn't work. And then Carr threw a pass to Willie Snead. Got hit off of one of the Ravens players' helmets. I can't remember. And then it was intercepted. And you're at the goal line. And it was crazy. I mean, if at this point in time, if you're a Raiders fan, I mean, I can't even imagine what you were feeling. Like, okay, touchdown, you think they win, they don't. Brought back. All right, you're pretty much at the 1-yard line, at the goal line right here. Let's punch it in, let's get it in. Didn't work, and then it turns out to an interception. Baltimore gets the ball back. Pretty much long story short, Lamar ends up fumbling the ball as that drive goes on. A big drop by Mark Andrews. Lamar fumbles it, and then the Raiders get the ball back. A bomb, nobody in sight to Zay Jones for the win. In overtime, Raiders win the game. Speaking of this game, this is what I'm going to talk about with this game. Lamar looked fine. Okay, Lamar looked fine. You can blame the fumble on him in overtime, but the thing is, I don't really like to because it never even should have got to that point for the Ravens. Lamar looked fine. He looked pretty poised. He looked pretty comfortable. He made some really nice throws down the field. Alejandro Villanueva. And I said this when the Ravens signed him. I didn't understand the signing at all for them, especially with what they do offensively. He was terrible. I don't think there was one play where Villanueva had any advantage over Max Crosby. Alejandro Villanueva was torched. He was toast. He was burnt toast the whole entire game. Gave up a lot of pressure on Lamar's right side. And it's hard to do that when you're not really having that time or that time in the pocket to make a play. So terrible game for him. Terrible game. It was interesting to see what they were going to do with this running game. Latavius Murray was active. Bell and Freeman were not. So it was really Tyson Williams and then Latavius Murray there kind of behind him running the play. Tyson Williams had a nice couple runs. He got a touchdown. Latavius Murray had an 8-yard touchdown down the stretch. But yeah, the biggest concern for the Ravens out of this game is their secondary. And we know Marcus Peters, we know what happened last week. He's obviously not there. He ain't coming back this season. They have Jimmy Smith, but he didn't play. You have Tavon Young, but he's a slot guy. So really what they were utilizing yesterday was guys like Westry, Stevens, really rookie guys out there. And, Anthony Everett. And it just wasn't enough. I mean, that one pass to Bryan Edwards, Stevens was on him. I had no idea how Stevens let him get that catch. I don't know Stevens' first name, so I'm calling him Stevens as his last name. Usually when these things happen, teams kind of want to see what they have right now. But in this case, with what happened yesterday, that Ravens secondary was torched. Darren Waller was all over it. Derek Carr was making pass after pass, ball down the field. Henry Ruggs with some big plays. Like I said, Bryan Edwards. It was bad. It was a very, very bad showing for the Ravens secondary. Marlon Humphrey got burned pretty much on that game-winning play to win the game. The Ravens really might have to go out and make a move at this point in time because Marcus Peters is a big playmaker. You can't replace that. But they really might have to go out and make a move for an outside cornerback because these guys, these practice squad guys, these young guys, these rookie guys, for a team like Baltimore and where Baltimore expects themselves to go, you can't have that. And after that performance, giving up over 430 passing yards to Carr, you can't have that. Deshaun Elliott looked terrible. Obviously, the position he plays isn't really even his strength anyway. That's very concerning. That, and I would say Villanueva are the two biggest concerns for them coming out of this game. But the defense of them got gassed. As the game kept going on, it was just getting gassed, and they just couldn't hang anymore. And so you got to give kudos to the Raiders, man, in regards of beating a team like Baltimore, who was pretty highly sought after going into this year. The Raiders offense was just clicking a lot. Josh Jacobs had a couple TDs. Kenyon Drake was in there, didn't really do a whole lot. But anyway, Raiders pull out with this win, 33-27. Baltimore plays Kansas City next Sunday night. It should be a fun game, but after this showing, this honestly might be this really might be what it takes for the Ravens to have to go out and make a move for a cornerback, because with what we saw this Monday, once Mahomes coming in, you can bank it right now. Over 400 yards from Mahomes, 5+ TDs, there you go. So, not saying Baltimore can't have a chance, but it's, after this game, not looking good there. But yeah, Raiders come to Pittsburgh next week. Like I said, I'll be there. But, man, the Raiders, really seeing that stadium last night, things like that, it's honestly really great the NFL has a team in Vegas, honestly. It fits perfect. Raiders fit perfect for the Vegas team, man. It was definitely a good... it's definitely a good, situation, I think, for the NFL. A couple other things I want to talk about. Let me talk about this Green Bay game. So I have Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy team as my quarterback, and I swear, whenever I have Aaron as my quarterback, he's ass. He doesn't do anything throughout the year. He's not a highly productive fantasy quarterback when I have him. When I don't, he's great. Got me like 2 points. But I did not see this performance coming from Green Bay. I don't think anybody did. But to me, it just, Aaron's body language, his, how he comes off, and I'm not making judgments here. I don't know what's going on in Aaron's head or his feelings or things like that. I'm not a judgmental person at all. When I just see him in the game, or when I see him after the game, it just comes off, he just doesn't care. And if you're a Packer fan, let me know in the comments if you feel this way, if it comes off that way to you. But to me, it's like there was like no passion there. There was no frustration. There was no, he pretty much said, hey, it's week 1, move on to the next. I get it, and that's a fine mindset to have. But it was just that performance, playing that awful, that bad. I would expect a little bit more maybe out of him. But I expect him to bounce back. I believe they play Detroit Monday night, I think. So you would think they would have a bounce back game and have a good showing. But they couldn't get anything. None of the receivers, they couldn't get a run game going. Jameis Winston was just hitting guys left and right. Kamara, obviously, is just a huge factor. 5 TDs for Winston, and you got to give it up for Jameis Winston, man. He signed with the Saints last year, took a backup role behind Breeze, didn't really play, and he finally got an opportunity, and he's taking advantage of that, it seems like. So hopefully, sometimes the quarterbacks need to go through that to really grow, develop, learn, and maybe that's something Jameis Winston's doing. Sean Payton's a good fit for him too, so definitely a good start for the Saints. If you're a Saints fan, that's what you want to see. This game was obviously in Jacksonville because Hurricane Ida and things like that. The first 4 games of the Saints season's not going to be home, or their first, whatever it is, the first 4 games of the year, however many home games they have within that span, it will not be there. It's going to be in Florida. I also wanted to talk about, who else did I want to talk about here? The Jets. You talk about the Jets injuries, man. The Jets, Mekhi Becton left on a cart. They've had, let me look up, man. The Jets have had a lot of injuries already the first week. Let me see this. Let me look this up real quick, man. Okay. So 5 Jet players are out multiple weeks after injuries. Let's see here. Mekhi Becton, dislocated kneecap. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Safety LaMarcus Joyner's out for the year. A tricep injury. Punter Braden Mann, knee injury, out 4 to 6 weeks. Jamie and Sherwood, sprained ankle, is out. And Blake Cashman, both 2 linebackers, out a couple weeks. That's obviously not what you want to see for the Jets. It seems like if you're a Jets fan, things just can't go right. The last time the Jets were anything of relevance was back in 2011, pretty much, and since then they haven't been able to figure out with their quarterbacks. The defense hasn't really been anything that good really since then for the most part. It's still very concerning right now, I think. The offensive line, it seemed like they tried to work on that kind of throughout the offseason, but now since you have Becton, that is not ideal at all, so that's definitely not what you want to see. I guess we got to wait and see. It's still a wait-and-see game. We got to wait and see how Robert Saleh is. Zach Wilson, from what I was seeing, again, I didn't watch this game. I didn't get it either, but from what I was seeing, Zach Wilson was making some pretty good passes, some pretty good plays. Receivers were dropping them. From what I saw, he looked fine. But he needs some more help there, and it's going to be a long season for the Jets. It's just the reality of it. But you obviously hope, if you're a Jets fan, best case scenario is Zach Wilson has a good showing and shows a lot of promise going for the future for this team. So those were like really the big things I feel like coming out of week 1 for me in the NFL. And it was a fun week 1, from Monday Night Football, the Thursday Night Football game, Chiefs-Browns, obviously the Steeler game, Bengals-Vikings. It was fun. Dolphins, Patriots. I mean, Mac Jones, he looked fine, I thought. Again, he's really looked comfortable the whole time. Tua, he obviously made plays. Dolphins just made more plays than New England did. But it's definitely, I think, a step in the right direction for Mac Jones. I think New England will be competitive this year. I do. There might be some growing pains for Mac Jones, some hiccups, just the way it is. But Mac Jones, he definitely looks comfortable. He definitely looks better starting off than really I thought maybe he would have. I didn't expect him to start week 1 before the Cam Newton stuff, honestly. I thought it was going to be Cam, and maybe they would work Mac Jones in later in the year. But once we knew Cam was released, Mac was the starter. So it might take a little bit of time maybe. The first few weeks, it's still early on. But the teams that lost, man, like Green Bay, Buffalo, Cleveland, Baltimore, and really generally speaking as well. But really those teams in particular that lost, Tennessee, it's week 1. There's no reason to overreact on certain things. Maybe there are certain things as well to be concerned about. If you're a fan of those teams, absolutely. And you hope to see those adjustments and improvements made early on, but really not until the middle of the year. We really don't know really what teams are. I think after the first quarter of the season is kind of a good place to really see where a team stands, and especially once you get halfway in that middle part, you have a much more understanding on what teams are. But it's week 1. If your team starts 0-1, 0-2, it's early, it's week 1, things happen, it's not the end of the season, there's 18 weeks, so kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Cleveland's still going to be good. Green Bay, I'm sure, is going to bounce back. Baltimore, yes, next week is hard. But Baltimore, they're still going to be a competitive team. Minnesota can still win some games. New England, I'm sure, will be competitive. It's just how it is. Now, with Baltimore, again, I was saying this all offseason. I honestly thought they were the most overhyped team coming in the league. Really, I was not a fan of what they've had going in with their pass rush this year, and we saw that in the Raiders game as well. I'm not saying this because I'm a Steeler fan. Yes, I'm not a Baltimore fan, folks. We all know this, but I'm just being real here as we're talking about this. Baltimore did not get a whole lot of consistent pressure on Derek Carr at all. Baltimore usually has a solid front seven. They're usually, they're pretty well known for their defense always, but their front seven was very concerning to me, and we didn't really see a whole lot of that last week against the Raiders, and obviously the issues with the secondary doesn't help either. It's definitely more concerning already right now than the front seven, but it's still early. They play Kansas City next week. I think if you're Baltimore, you make adjustments, things like that, and you go from there. If things continue to kind of seem the way they are after Kansas City, you might have to go out and make a move for a cornerback. You really might have to. We know they're going to rotate guys on the edge, things like that. Okay, that's fine. That's where they're at right now. But you might have to go do something. You really do. You really do. So Villanueva, if you give him another chance, okay. If he still struggles on, you got to get rid of him. You got to get somebody else in there. So I don't know. It's early on for Baltimore. If you're a Ravens fan, and even just speaking normally, it's early on. Relax, pump the brakes a little bit. Even if they lose to the Chiefs next week, they're still going to be competitive. They're still going to win games. So pump the brakes on that, okay? But yeah, so that was week 1 of the NFL, man. Enjoyable week 1. It's great football is back. We all know that. It's all very exciting. Let me get into college football real quick before we really wrap up this show. And with college football, folks, I said this last week. I'm an NFL guy, okay? College football, I like college football. There's a lot of things I like about it, but there's also quite a bit of things I don't like about it. I've never been emotionally invested in college football. So if you're really coming here for college football reviews or recaps or going through, I'm going to be quite honest with you here, man. It's not going to be too in-depth like you might see other channels or things of that kind of nature. When it comes to college football, I'm only going to be talking about games that really stand out. I'm only going to be talking about certain news coming out of college football or certain performances, things like that. I'm not going to be diving in the way I do NFL. I'm not going to be breaking down things, going over all these scores and things like that like the NFL. It's just the way it is. It's just where I'm at. I don't, like, I watch it every Saturday, but I'm not emotionally invested in it like a lot of other people are. So that's why it might not be, my reviews of it might not be too crazy or anything like that. But like I said, I am going to talk about it. I am going to talk about certain things coming out of college football. But it's just not going to be like how I do it for the NFL. It's just the way it is. And it's just my feelings about college football. So, really, so we talked about the USC news. We saw they fired their coach. Urban Meyer has been linked to that. Who knows what's going to happen? I really don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. Definitely maybe the biggest upset of the week, Oregon over Ohio. It's not that Oregon's bad, but Ohio State. But I think a lot of people picked Ohio State for this game. And CJ Stroud, he's just not cutting it for me. Ohio State's season is pretty much over at this point in time. And that's one thing about college football that I don't like. College football plays X amount of games, not nearly as much as the NFL. But once these teams lose one game you're pretty much done. You can still go to your bowl game or whatever, but these teams that want to win a national title, you're pretty much done. And that's one thing I don't like about it. But going to Ohio State, CJ Stroud, 484 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So yeah, it's CJ Stroud, we know he was definitely better than what he was last time. CJ Stroud, first year starting, could have been maybe some growing pains there starting on. But that turnover was pretty costly. Looking at it on paper, he played, it's a really good game. 114 QBR, 64.8 completing of his passes. That's really good. And maybe he will be a good quarterback for Ohio State. Ohio State usually hits on their quarterbacks. But I don't really think CJ Stroud really did enough in regards of, really, getting those points on the board in crunch time. doing what you need to do to get that win. I was watching the tail end of this game, and yes, he was a lot better. But he didn't do enough, though, at the end of the game to, get those points on the board, to try to take the lead, tie the game, whatever it might be. And that's what you need from your quarterback like that. Now, Oregon's no slouch. We know Oregon's a top team. CJ Stroud, this is really his second start, I'm pretty sure. So, things happen. He's a young guy. But, things like that is what you need your quarterback to do. When you're down like that, you can't turn over the ball. You can't make poor bonehead decisions later on. And CJ Stroud just didn't do enough there toward the end, but he played a lot better. And we'll see if Ohio State, we'll see how really the rest of their year pans off, but they're pretty much done after this anyway. So, but Oregon, Anthony Brown went 17 for 35. A 48.6 pass completion. They really were pretty reliant on their run game, it seems like, really throughout this game. 2 touchdowns. CJ Verdell, 20 attempts for 161, 8 a carry, 2 TDs. You can't really ask for much better than that. And then Anthony Brown obviously ran for 10 for 65. So, Oregon, definitely an upset. Pretty back and forth second half, it seems like. But Ohio State just didn't do enough. They just couldn't get enough done to come back and limit, really limit Oregon in the final stages and to be able to really ice the game. CJ Stroud just didn't do enough either in regards of really being able to keep the game iced. The defense didn't do enough, so it's just the way it is. But Ohio State seems like their season might pretty much be over at that point. Let me see here. Let's look at Pitt Panthers, man. Pitt Panthers, talking about Pitt because it's really standoutish to me. Pitt Panthers defeated Tennessee 41-34. Kenny Heisman, man. Kenny Heisman. No, I'm kidding. I'm obviously not like a Pitt fan, but I obviously want to see them do well. Let's go over the box score real quick for the Panthers. So, Tennessee got a 10-0 lead here in the first quarter. Panthers pretty much won the battle. They scored 27 the second quarter, 10 points of volunteers, so it was 27-20 going in half, and then it was pretty much back and forth the second half. Touchdown. But Kenny Pickett, 285, 2 touchdowns, QBR 117, 66 completion percentage, 24-36. Very good game, very poised for Kenny Pickett. Getting his team to 2-0, making the much-needed plays. That's what you want to see out of Kenny Pickett, especially this is his last year. And I'm interested to see where he's going to be in regards of his draft stock and things like that. I don't know, but that's definitely the start you want for Pitt. Definitely the start for Kenny Pickett that he wants starting off this year and trying to finish his Pitt career strong here. Tennessee, obviously, Hendon Hooker went for Hendon Hooker, however you want to say it. 15-21, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, did have a pick. So nothing really impressive there from their passing game, really, and not really that effective in their run game. But 41-34 was the final there. Pitt's 2-0, Tennessee's 1-1. Obviously, we know Tennessee, we know that they're not going to do anything crazy this year. Pitt, we'll see how they do in the conference. We'll see how they finish off. We'll see how they continue on going into next week, but that's definitely the start Kenny Pickett wants going into the second game of the year. So definitely good stuff for Kenny Pickett. If you're a Pitt fan, obviously you're very encouraged by that. Georgia had a game where their offense really had a big showing. I believe JT Daniels, he was out. I'm not really quite sure really what his injury was. But man, they absolutely slaughtered UAB, man. 56-7. I had this game on a little bit. Stetson Bennett, he started in JT Daniels' spot, went only through 12 passes. What's that tell you? 5 touchdowns and 12 passes. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if that's how good Bennett is or how really bad UAB is, but had a perfect quarterback rating in that game, man. And not really much of a ground attack really from Georgia. It was really just straight Bennett just tossing five TDs to guys. Brock Bowers had 2 of those. Jermaine Burton had 1. Arian Smith had 1. And then McIntosh and Robinson both finished with 1 as well. So Georgia definitely on the right track. They're 2-0. Obviously, they want to make that college playoff. And they definitely had a big win over Clemson last week. Pretty low scoring, pretty defensive-heavy game this week. I think we all knew and expected that this was going to be a blowout. We all knew that the offense was really going to come alive. Bennett, we weren't really sure what was going to happen, but definitely had a great showing here for his start. We'll see whenever JT Daniels comes back. But Georgia, 56-7. If you're a Georgia fan, that's obviously what you want to see there. Alabama obviously won. They went to 2-0. What else we got here? We got Oklahoma State, 2-0. Pretty close game with Tulsa, 28-23. I don't know what's going on with Notre Dame, man. Notre Dame, this is I believe last time I looked, they were up to being ranked 8. A very close game for them, almost being upsetted again to Toledo, 32-29. And I didn't have this game on, but looking at it, I mean, pretty much what happened was they were up by 1 in the first. Toledo outscored them going in at halftime, nothing in the third. And then Notre Dame pretty much just, outscored them by about 5 more points in the fourth. They were able to get 18 on the board to Toledo's 13 and took the win. So another very close game for Notre Dame, which could be a concerning thing if you're a Notre Dame fan in regards of, how close these games are against these teams. And a win's a win. A win's a win. I don't care what level you're playing. But, you definitely want to see Notre Dame maybe have a little bit more assurance points, have a little bit more coverage. Well, not coverage, but a little bit more, dominance. I think that's what you want to see, especially if you're going to consider them a playoff team. Jack Cohen went 21 for 33, 239 TD and a pick. Kyron Williams, 16 for 78 on yards with a TD. Toledo, Carter Bradley, 17-27, 213, didn't throw a touchdown. Nothing really that impressive there from him. Brian Koback, 21 carries, 122 for a TD, and DeQuan Finn got a TD as well. So, they wanted to go ground game, it seems like, but Notre Dame, 2-0. They were at 8 last time I checked. Not really sure what they're going to bump up to. I haven't really looked if those have come out. I'm sure they have. I have not looked. But yeah, Clemson got a big bounce-back win. Their quarterback, big bounce-back week from last week. So, I don't know. I mean, going into... what was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. But really, the Ohio State upset definitely stood out to me. I think really more than anything. And Notre Dame's close game. Obviously, I think we expected, some of these higher tier teams to win. Clemson won 49-3. West Virginia 66-0. Holy smokes. See what else we got here. Let me go into the later night games. Oklahoma 76-0. I mean, right there. Like, that is prime example why as well that I'm not like a huge college football fan. It's stuff like that. And I can go on with things I like and what I don't like about college football. I'm mixed on it. Like, I enjoy watching certain games in college football, but again, I'm just not emotionally attached to it or invested. I'm not a fan of a certain team in college football. It's just how I am. There's a lot of things I like about it. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. But I enjoy watching it. Football's football. I love the atmosphere, obviously. But it's just stuff like that. It's like, dude, I don't even know if, when you're a fan like this, if you're a fan of Oklahoma, I don't even know how you're excited about that game. 76-0. I don't even know how you even enjoy that. Really, I don't. That's just me. Carolina, big bounce back win, 59-17 over Georgia State. Sam Howell, obviously we know what he is, and we'll kind of see how he does continuing on in the year. Michigan won 31-10. ASU, big win over UNLV. ASU was pretty much cutting it close there with UNLV going into halftime, and they just kind of took everything away. So ASU, I believe they were, last time I looked, I think they bumped up to, what are they bumped up to now? Are they bumped up to 18 now? I honestly can't remember. But they're continuing to work their way as well, so that's really good. Oregon State wins 45-27 against Hawaii, the last game of the week. And USC loses to Stanford 42-28 as their coach is on the outs. But yeah, guys, that's really the week in college football in regards to games that I was looking at, games that stood out to me. That's really it. like I said, I mean, I'm just being straight up with you guys. If you're a big college football fan, I'm really just going to go over games that I find interesting, maybe certain players' performances that really stand out, or any kind of news coming out of college football. But I'm not really going to break things down and really dive in and really give my in-depth thoughts and really go breakdown by breakdown on things like I do the NFL. I love the NFL, and my passion, my liking, my love for the NFL doesn't even compare to college football. So it's just the way it is, and that's really how it's going to be. When I go over college football, I'm just going to kind of go over the things that really just kind of stand out, So that's just my emotional attachment level in it. And I'm just going to kind of do what I can in regards of being able to kind of go through certain games, recapping certain things, talking about certain things, or if there's a certain game I maybe watched, things that maybe stood out there I want to talk about. So that's just the way it is. Hopefully you guys kind of understand that perspective, my perspective on that. But like I said, I mean, I love the atmosphere of college football. A lot of things I like about it, but it's just kind of how I've always been toward it, and maybe you guys are the same way. Maybe you guys really love it. I know there's people that like it more than the NFL, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, that's just kind of where I stand with it, and that's why, my reviews or my, me talking about college football compared to the NFL isn't really the same. That's just kind of how it is and how I am toward it. So hopefully you guys understand that. But that's going to wrap it up here, guys, on episode 38 of In Hindsight, folks. And hold on, was this episode 38? I can't even remember. Let me check real quick. Changing this schedule, because I'm so used to the odd number being on Saturday and then the even number being on Sunday. Changing the schedule up, I'm going to have to freaking get used to this. Episode 38. There you go. Episode 38 of IHS, guys. So I thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this, listen to me kind of talk about things coming out of the weekend. And hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day, rest of this week. Thursday night, we got the Giants and Washington. That's going to be a sleep fest. But we'll be talking about it Friday. We'll be back here Friday. So, but anyway, guys, thank you all so much. I appreciate all your guys' support. Hit that subscribe, that like if you guys want to, because like I said, I know I say this every video. I'm just trying to keep growing this channel, man, and that's what we're going to do. Keep reaching more sport fans. Let's do it here, folks. Let's do it. Everybody's welcome here and things like that. So let's keep on rolling. Let's keep it rolling. So enjoy your day, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you Friday. All right. Take care.